Marvel Studios may be hitting us with marketing for Quantumania and the third Guardians of the Galaxy, but we're looking forward to another 2023 Marvel flick. There are lots of possibilities riding on the Marvels, which is set to bring three important heroes together, but we do have some expectations for it too. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the important work that the Marvels absolutely have to do. Firstly, a villain problem that the Marvels might have. About the only thing we know for sure about the plot of the Marvels is that it's going to bring three marvelous superheroines together. You have, of course, the Captain herself, Carol Danvers. Kamala will finally get to hang out with the Rydell as Ms. Marvel, and then Monica Rambeau will join them as Spectrum. The movie has been described as a minor crossover, unlike movies like Thor Ragnarok, in which Thor was the lead and the Hulk was a supporting character. Now, we're talking about some powerful heroes here. Kamala didn't get to fully explore her powers in Ms. Marvel, but even as a rookie, she defeated the gang from the Noor dimension, outfoxed damage control, and time-traveled to the time of the partition. Rambeau hasn't gotten to use her powers much either, but she did help in WandaVision's final battle, meaning that she can take on a super powerful witch. Carol, of course, wields the power of a gosh darn Infinity Stone. A movie that brings these three characters together is gonna need a really powerful villain. After all, if Carol can almost handle someone like Thanos on her own, having this kind of backup would allow her to take on almost any villain on the Marvel roster, including Kang. They should probably go and end the multiverse saga straight away, save the others some trouble. Next up, Marvel needs to start thinking about how it uses villains. So, the Marvel Cinematic Universe usually has a major overarching story, a couple of subplots, and then most of the heroes are on their personal character journeys that are explored through solo movies and cameos. But one thing that's remained pretty common throughout the MCU is the disposability of its villains. With few exceptions, Marvel will usually pit a hero against a villain, and the hero normally defeats the villain in a way that means they can't come back. In order to create a sense of increasing threat, each villain has to be stronger than the last. For example, in Black Panther, we had one guy with Panther powers, but in the sequel, it was an even more powerful guy with an army. But this raises a problem for the strongest heroes in the MCU. Thanos has been the strongest individual villain that our heroes have faced so far. Even without the Infinity Stones, Thanos showed a power level that puts him above the level of most of the MCU hero lineup. But we have seen a full-strength Thor, a mid-strength Wanda, and Captain Marvel herself fare really well against Thanos, and Thor even managed to kill him. For a Captain Marvel team-up movie, there aren't many villains left that are stronger than Thanos for these characters to face, and even if there are, Marvel Studios would want to save those for their biggest storylines. Let's talk about adjusting the power scaling. Avengers Infinity War and Endgame tried this, but in a way that was mostly temporary. Remember how Bruce Banner couldn't turn into the Hulk in Infinity War and how Thor was depressed during Endgame? Those developments weren't just important for the character stories, they also nerfed the threat those characters posed to Thanos. Of course, Thor is back to full strength now, but Marvel Studios are definitely using the Professor Hulk transformation to weaken the character to a more manageable level. The Marvels could find a similar way to downscale Captain Marvel's problem. As it stands, whatever the movie has in store for her, Carol could probably handle it on her own. Kamala and Monica are just along for the ride. But through the events of the movie, Marvel could contrive a reason for Carol to end the movie weaker than she was before, making her a more reasonable competitor for, say, Kang. Now, this isn't the ideal way of solving the problem, because it can cause a backlash. There are loads of Marvel fans who are annoyed that Hulk is so weak in the MCU. They want their big green monster to smash everything like he used to. Captain Marvel isn't normally perceived as being that strong of a character though, so Kevin Feige might be able to get away with it in this case. Moving on to experimenting with the villains. This is actually something that Marvel has dabbled with already, but we think that it should extend into the solo movies as well. Here's what we mean by experimental. If you look at Kang, he's obviously not a Thanos-level powerhouse. Scott Lang could go giant and crush Kang in the palm of his hand, but the threat that Kang poses can't be defeated by punching him. Whatever his plans are for the multiverse are going to require a more brainy solution from the heroes. That's interesting and creative, and it also avoids the power levels problem. For the Marvels, they could try giving the heroes a threat that can't be stopped through sheer violence. Looking at the common plot threads between Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel, it looks likely that the movie will deal with the Kree. Zoe Ashton is known to be playing an antagonist in the movie, and she's been seen holding an accuser-type hammer. But if the villain of the Marvels ends up being a redo of Ronan, that'll be super lame. Suppose the Marvels tries to tackle the conflict between the Kree and the Skrulls. These two races are usually at war with each other in the comics, but in the MCU, the Skrulls are in a weaker state. Why not make the Marvels a movie in which the heroes have to mediate peace between the two races? That'd be different. Let's talk about a potentially cool direction for Captain Marvel's character. The MCU has two captains right now. Apart from Carol, there's Captain America, and he isn't a captain by just name. Steve Rogers was the glue that held the superhero world together, and Sam Wilson will definitely assume a leadership role in the MCU going forward. Meanwhile, it kind of feels like Carol is just calling herself a captain right now because she used to be in the Air Force. Now, that probably isn't 100% true. Carol has spent most of the past 20-odd years of the MCU out in space, working with alien races across the galaxy. She might be seen as a captain beyond planet Earth, but the Marvels could put Carol in a position where she earns the title of captain on screen. Imagine Carol Danvers being the glue that holds the cosmic side of the MCU together, just like Sam Wilson will at the ground level. This will become important as the scope of the MCU extends beyond the Earth's stratosphere, and we'll need a viewpoint on that side of the universe. We could then see the two of them working together to resolve problems that affect the Earth and the rest of the galaxy. It's also possible that this could lead to Alpha Flight becoming a thing, and wouldn't that be cool? Also, think of the storyline potential of making Captain Marvel an MCU leader. We actually might have an idea there. Lastly, could we see Civil War II in the future? If you're a movie-only person, you might be surprised at the thought of returning to the Civil War well again, but it's actually happened in the comics. While the basic idea was the same, with the superhero community being split down the middle and fighting each other, the reasons and characters were different, as Steve Rogers was going through stuff. Captain Marvel led the side that opposed Tony Stark on the issue of using Ulysses, an Inhuman, to predict and stop crimes before they happened. Of course, that storyline was poorly received, and the Inhumans aren't really a thing in the MCU anymore. So the MCU Civil War II will be a lot different, but we think that the general concept can be explored in the movies. A Civil War II movie would pit Sam Wilson against Carol Danvers on a larger issue, maybe one where Carol has to side with the rest of the galaxy against the Earth by itself. Both leaders have their loyal deputies, and different heroes will align with each of the captains. Come to think of it, now that the world has forgotten Peter Parker, a Civil War II movie might just give Peter the chance to dramatically unmask himself, recreating the iconic moment from the original Civil War comic. There's so much potential in the idea of pitting a larger superhero community against itself that a second Civil War needs to happen. That's it for today's video. Let us know in the comments section below who you'd like to see go up against the Marvels, and what you'd like to see from these characters in the future. As for the release of the movie, that is currently set to happen on the 28th of July next year. That's a long wait, and one you can kill by liking, sharing, and subscribing.